Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the celebration of life for Dr. Barry Gilmore. And what a life it was. This celebration is intentionally joyful and lighthearted, reflecting both Barry's desires for this celebration and the way he lived his life. The speakers you hear today will represent each of the communities of which Barry was a part. My name is Katie Nair, and I've had the good fortune to work with Barry for the last 9 years. I first came to know him when we hired him to teach English in our upper school, and it just so happened that my older daughter, Gabby, was in his class in 9th and 10th grade. And I'm sure I speak for many parents of Barry's students when I say thank you. Barry was Gabby's favorite teacher of all time and her first real mentor. She spent many hours in his room during her free time, and they became fast friends. They started a sort of book club between the two of them. Gabby introduced Barry to John Green, and Barry challenged her to think for herself and to think about the world in new ways that her father and I could not. I've heard many of Barry's former students say that among all their teachers, he was one who really helped them shape their worldview and who continue to have an impact today. I've seen him make Chaucer's Canterbury Tales come alive for students who'd rather die than recite Middle English. I've seen him almost jump for joy over teaching Pride and Prejudice in the middle of his administrative schedule. And many of his students remember the love and humor and true joy he brought to the classroom. When Barry became ill, many students began to reach out to him to let him know how important he was to them. And many members of the class of 2014 gathered their letters together and sent them to him in a packet. And in the packet, there was a letter on top, and I'd like to quote from that. Dear Dr. Gilmore, with all the wonderful faculty that taught us at Hutchinson, you were one of the most impactful. I hope you know already that even those student-teacher relationships that last only 1 year last forever in the heart and mind of a student. You'll find in these letters that many of these women attribute their successes and budding careers in some great way to you and to your enthusiasm for learning. It's no small accomplishment to have influenced and shaped some of what I think are the world's brightest young women. End quote. So I serve as the upper school assistant head here at Hutchinson, and when Barry came over to the upper school 3 years ago to become the upper school head, there was something that he sat me down to tell me. He said, Katie, something you need to know about me is I don't give praise. And I said, Barry, that's fine. I don't need praise. And then over the next 3 years, I watched him praise, encourage, motivate all those people around him, students, teachers, staff, parents, colleagues, every day. Whether he knew it or not, he made people feel appreciated. And one of the things that he did as upper school head was observe teachers teach. He always made it a point to do this on the day that they actually scheduled him and prepared for him to do it because he knew what it was like to be a teacher and have someone watch. It didn't always work out this way, but he always tried. And he loved it. He would often return from these observations excited and just enthusiastic. And after each one, he would meet with the teacher and talk through the lesson and give feedback. Well, my office is right next to Barry's, and while I couldn't hear the specifics, I could often hear laughter and enthusiasm coming out of these meetings. So when the teacher left, I would get up and stick my head in his door and go, sounds like a praise to me. And he would laugh. It became a joke between us. He'd say something nice to me or someone else or thank somebody for their good work, and I'd say, is that praise? We did it so often that I could just give him a look, and he would know what I meant. Well, over the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity to listen as many faculty members warmly reminisce about their relationship with Barry. And whether they often agreed with him or not about what should be going on at the school, each and every one felt heard and valued by him. I heard phrases like, "He really got me. He really understood me." And even when we disagreed, I respected him and I felt respected by him. So when you work closely with someone on a day-to-day basis, you get to know them really well. Their thoughts, their feelings, their dreams, their pet peeves, how they feel about their family, their children, their students, their works, and you get to watch them interact with the people around them every day. And if you're really, really lucky like me, you get to watch them fall in love. To me, Barry was the embodiment of presence and vitality. To be around him was to be around someone who was truly engaged in life. He was all in all the time. When he laughed, it was this full body giggle. And if I ever had the opportunity to say something or do something that made him laugh like this, it was like I did something really good that day. And I know I'm not the only person who feels this way. And he thought lots of things were funny. He looked for the joy and humor in almost everything. He often played practical jokes on some dreary Tuesday in February, and if you work in a school, February is awful, just to brighten up the day and to get us all laughing. When he taught with excitement and a love of learning that was contagious. When he wrote, whether a book, an article, or even an email, he had so much to say that the words just came easily to him. You might say that he wrote like it was running out of time. That was a little Hamilton reference for Barry. He loved Hamilton. And when he loved something or someone, it was all over him. He couldn't hide it. He didn't want to. He lived and loved with every part of himself, no holding back. What that meant for the people around him was to be inspired. He's inspired many, especially his colleagues and students here at Hutchinson. But one thing Barry loved most is music, especially Irish folk music. He was an incredibly talented musician, playing multiple instruments, and if you ever got to watch him perform at Celtic Crossing or somewhere else, you've seen what I mean about him living his life with his whole self. He was often playing, singing, cajoling the audience to sing along, while at the same time teaching them the words and the hand motions all together. He played with many bands throughout the years, including Bards of a Feather, whose members are here today, Susanna, Josh, and David, along with dear friends, Robert and John. They will be performing a song called Old Dun Cow, an Irish pub song selected by Barry specifically to set the tone for this memorial celebration. If you're moved to sing along to this song or any of the others, please do so. Barry would love that. Please enjoy Old Dun Cow.
There's a part to sing along with or shout along with in this, you might catch on. Some friends and I in a public house were playing a game one night. When into the bar, the barman runs, his face all chalky white. "What's up?" says Brown. "Have you seen a ghost? Have you seen your Aunt Mariah?" "Oh, me Aunt Mariah, be buggered," said she, "the bloody pub's on fire." "On fire," says Brown, "what a bit of luck. Everybody follow me. We'll down to the cellar, and if the fire's not there, we'll have a rare old spree." So we all went down with Goldod Brown, and beer we could not miss. And we hadn't been there 10 minutes or more till we were all quite drunk. And there was Brown upside down, mopping up a whiskey on the floor. "Booze, booze," the firemen cried as they came knocking at the door. Oh, don't let it bend till it's all mopped up. Somebody shouted, McIntyre, McIntyre! And we all got stoned by a paralytic drunk when the old dun cow caught fire. And then there came through the old back door the vicar of the local church. And when he saw our drunken ways, he began to scream and curse. You drunken sods, you heathen clods, you've done an awful spree. You've drunk up all the communion wine and you didn't leave a drop for me. And there was found upside down, mopping up the whiskey on the floor. Booze, booze, the firemen cried as they came knocking at the door. Oh, don't let it bend till it's all mopped up. Somebody shouted, McIntyre. And we all got stoned by a paralytic drunk when the old dun cow caught fire. Then Smith walked over to the port wine tub, gave it just a few hard knocks. He started taking off his shoes and pants, likewise his clothes and socks. Oh, don't do that, you can't do that, that ain't allowed in here. Don't be washing your clothes in the port wine tub when we've got English beer. And there was found upside down, mopping up the whiskey on the floor. Booze, booze, the firemen cried as they came knocking at the door. Oh, don't let it bend till it's all drunk up. Somebody shouted, McIntyre. And we all got stoned by a paralytic drunk when the old dun cow got fire. And later that night when the fire was out, we climbed from the cellar below. The pub was burnt, our beer was drunk, our heads were hanging low. Then Brown looked up at the old clock tower. Something caught his ire. Oh, we gotta get down to Murphy's pub, 'cause the last call's in an hour. And there was found upside down, mopping up the whiskey on the floor. Booze, booze, the firemen cried as they came knocking at the door. Oh, don't let it bend till it's all mopped up. Somebody shouted, McIntyre. And we all got stoned by a paralytic drunk when the old dun cow caught fire. Very good.
So in the autumn of 1988, Barry and I had just started to room together at Middlebury College. We did our first load of laundry, and we brought our baskets up from the laundry room, and I started to fold mine very neatly and place it in the drawers, the shirts in the shirt drawer, the socks in the sock drawer, and so on. Barry opened the drawer of his dresser and dumped the basket in and closed it. And I chided him for this because we were college students, and college students should be disciplined. And Barry was not being disciplined. And I told him what I thought of this, and he said, well, Dave, if someday I have kids, I'll give them to you for a little while, and you can teach them how to fold laundry. And then he picked up his guitar and started to play while I folded. So, Katie, Zoe, Phoebe, I have not yet taken you on and taught you how to fold laundry. I imagine you've already figured out which laundry needs folding, which doesn't. But sometimes prayer, it's good just to begin with a confession, or good to begin with an acknowledgement that things perhaps have not always gone as they should have. And yet, I also want to leave you with a decision. Which of us made the better choice about the folding of the laundry? And sometimes in prayer, we look ahead and look back at what we've done and maybe make different choices together. Sometimes in prayer, we look at those things that were left unsaid and the people who were left out and the things that were left undone or the things that we shouldn't have done, and we leave them aside so that we might join our hearts together and look ahead at what might come and be best. Among Barry's last wishes, he wrote, Dave O'Hara, if he can attend, might offer a prayer. Though I am not particularly religious, I trust Dave to understand the value I place on the spiritual and the communal power of recognizing what is good and right in the world. And it is in that spirit that I will offer a prayer. I'm going to use some of the language of my own tradition because it's what I know best and it's what I fall back on at times like these when words fail me. So please pardon my words if they differ from the words that you would have chosen, and let me invite you to substitute better words in your hearts, more meaningful to you as I pray. We will pray words of lamentation, of affirmation and thanksgiving, and of mutual benediction. Before we do that, I'll ask you just for a moment to hold in your hearts those who could not be present and include them by remembering them. And I will name one, our college classmate, Karmali Banji, who I hope is listening to this broadcast right now in Toronto at his family reunion, but who very much wanted to be here. With that in mind, one more thing. Barry loved to sing and to dance and to celebrate. As we walked across campus, I very rarely remember him walking in a straight line. I'm going to pray words in a straight line, but if your tradition or your heart or your spirit has you hoot, holler, say amen, clap, or whatever else comes to mind, go for it. Let us pray. O love divine, all loves excelling, we are crushed. We do not want to live without Barry, and we bring our lament to you now because what the hell else can we do? We want him back because in him we caught glimpses of love divine, all loves excelling. It is hard to see through tears, so be thou our vision and give us eyes to see what is still right and good in the world. What else can we do? Well, we can affirm what was right and good in Barry, giving thanks and rejoicing in the gift of his life even as we lament his death. And so, for his love of justice and kindness, forgiveness and mercy, reconciliation and atonement, we give thanks. For his love of education and of learning and of continuing to learn, we give thanks. For his delight in new experiences, in traveling so that he might meet strangers, in meeting strangers so that he might learn from them, in learning so that he might be a better neighbor and teacher and friend, we give thanks. For the music that coursed in his veins and made his feet always seem to be dancing, that worked through every muscle and fiber of his holy body, for every song he shared with us, for every time he picked up an instrument and invited others to join him, and sometimes to not fold laundry, for his sense that in music as our shared joy in life, we give thanks. For the beginning of his life, for his 5 decades being such. Last month, writing music while he had breath, giving out grace that we have breathed. We affirm all that we have that Barry was a brother anymore, a friend more than deserved, a teacher to everyone who was willing to enter his classroom or to come to his office or to share a meal with him. And we affirm that the breath he breathed is the air we breathe in now, the air with which he speak his name and his memories, the air that we will fill with song in his memory. And we affirm that when we say his name and sing in his memory, the consequence of his life still lives in us, and we ask, we beg, we demand that all that was good in Barry's life, all that we loved in that love divine that we knew in him, will never depart, never die, never leave us. Let it be like seeds scattered to the wind, which perhaps we do not see, but that find fertile soil in others' lives. O love divine, all loves excelling, we glimpsed you in Barry. Let our lives be lives that nourish and foster and cultivate all that we saw of you in him. And by the way, we pray that if you have chosen to allow there to be a hell, that its chief and only resident right now will be the cancer that took Barry's life. O love divine, comfort us in our distress. Empower us to comfort others who mourn. Give us strength and courage to prevent the suffering of our neighbors. God of all hopefulness, we commend Barry to you as we commit him to this world, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Bless him and keep him. Make your face shine upon him. Be gracious unto him. Give him rest and peace, and may light perpetual shine upon him. Give him eternal rest, and give to us eternal hope. Amen.
Thank you, Dave and Katie. I'm Brad Gilmore. I am Barry's brother. And on behalf of our extended family, just like to welcome those who came from far away by car, by airplane. Barry would have been honored. My remarks are going to be brief, fortunately for me, and focus on certain milestones in Barry's life. 5 minutes is really not enough time to cover the waterfront, but I'm going to hopefully hit the highlights. Barry was born in 1969 in Chicago. He was the youngest of three. I was the oldest. My sister Cheney, who's sitting next to my mother, was the middle child, as she's often want to remind us. Middle child syndrome is a thing, right? Barry moved to Lexington, Massachusetts from Chicago when he was about 3 years old. We spent 3 years in Lexington and moved to Nashville, so he would have moved to Nashville when he was 5 or 6 years old. He graduated in the first magnet school, academic magnet school class at Hume Fogg, which is in downtown Nashville, and graduated in 1987, I believe. There he met three good friends, David Heiser, Josh Cully, and his first wife, Susanna Perry, all of whom have played before you and will play. They formed a band called Bards of a Feather. Barry was ever the one to play on words, and it's really good. This is not a shameless ploy for revenue, but I think the discs are probably available on Amazon. And I promise you it'll be worth every cent. Susanna bore him two beautiful daughters, Katie and Zoe, and together with his wife Tracy and his daughter Phoebe, they were the most important things in his life. Barry went to Middlebury, as you heard. I believe he graduated in 1991 and obtained a master's in medieval studies from University College in London. And then later in life, he obtained a doctorate in education from Vanderbilt University in Nashville. To say he was well educated would be a massive understatement. Many of you are actually more qualified to talk about his teaching career, his music, his writing career than I am. But no one is more qualified than Barry himself. And fortunately, we have some of his words here. He was a prolific writer and wrote, did a timeline, actually. So I've told you about high school in Middlebury. From 1993 to 1995, 1993 to 95, after he had gotten his master's, he lived in Boston and worked at a copy company called Knight Rider, as I recall. 95 to 97, he taught school in King City, California. In 97 to 98, he worked for the Memphis Arts Council. 98 to 99, he taught at All Saints Episcopal School in Carmel and Monterey in California. From 99, 2000 until 2010, he taught at Lausanne School. And before the service, Leanne Sloan, who's like a surrogate grandmother to the older girls, or a third grandmother, told me a story about how Barry had helped her son, had equipped him despite some difficulties he was having. So that was meaningful. And I know he loved Lausanne, but life brought him to Hutchinson in 2010, and he's been here ever since. And he loved this place. And we, our family, have seen what he saw in Hutchinson. You all have been so supportive and just surrounded us in so many ways. We really appreciate it. Musical life, Bards of a Feather, Planet Reel was another band he was in, with Susanna, Greg, Josh, John, Robert, and Dancing Jimmy for the past few years with John and Robert and Josh. Last musical project was Sidekicks musical, which he wrote, and which I believe will be performed here at some point. He published his first book in 2000. It was called Drawing the Line, and he has a website with other books. Katie and Zoe's Verse, Marriage to Tracy and Phoebe in parens, all among the most important developments of my life. I know he would want me to specifically mention the adoption of Phoebe that occurred on June 21st of this year, and it was a real blessing to be able to assist in that, and it was a real blessing to be able to get that done before he left us, and I know that was hugely important to him. It formalized and legalized the father-daughter relationship between himself and Phoebe, and legally changed her name to Phoebe Marissa Fink Gilmore. So as I struggled with how to end this, I realized that Barry had also once again provided the answer. So to close, Barry, in his own words, I would like someone to acknowledge my deep, endless, and abiding love for my daughters as I would for my wife. Any thought I have at any moment about death brings my family immediately to mind. Though I feel sadness for them at those moments, what I feel for myself is gratitude for all they have given me. I would like nothing more than to be the witness for every moment of their lives, including their triumphs, setbacks, sorrows, and joys. But I treasure every moment I've had with them and know that their lives will be filled with wonder and marvels. I would also like someone to acknowledge the extraordinary nature of my family, and especially my mother. I am sure she has been filled with pride and love for me in her life, but I sometimes wonder if it is possible for a son to have even more pride and love for his mother than she does in him. She has been my role model, my compass, and my mainstay throughout my life. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Magdalena, and I teach government and comparative politics in the upper school here at Hutchinson, which means for the past 3 years, I've had the distinct pleasure of having Barry Gilmore as my mentor and boss. But I actually met Barry a really long time ago. In 1999, 20 years ago, I was a student at the Governor's School for International Studies here at the University of Memphis. It was a state-sponsored school that began in 1986 when Barry was a teenager, and his mother, Dr. Sue Gilmore, was a part of helping start the program. It's a super competitive school that usually attracts the best and brightest, super diverse group of students to come. It was actually his mother, Dr. Sue Gilmore, that was my teacher, but Barry lived on campus, so I got to know him throughout the month, and I got to experience tons and tons of his innovative lectures and activities. I wanted to share 4 memories that I have of that year, which is pretty good for 20 years ago. So 1, Barry was an amazing ultimate Frisbee player. And I was watching him play one time in front of South Hall, and some kid had thrown the Frisbee a little way too long. And instead of giving up, Barry sprinted toward the Frisbee as fast as humanly possible. And in his blind spot, he neglected to see a giant light pole. And he crashed into the light pole, and everybody ran towards him, and his leg was bleeding profusely. And I looked at Barry, and he was just laughing, holding the Frisbee that he had caught. Number 2, I do remember that Barry was the teacher that all of my friends, the girls at the program called the cute teacher. Number 3, Barry allegedly studied phrenology, which, if you don't know what that is, it is a pseudoscience from a long time ago in which people believed that they could know things about your character and personality and morality by actually reading the bumps on your head. So, of course, I asked Barry to read my head, and he's sitting there and putting his fingers all over my skull and, telling me things that I was so amazed that he could know from these bumps on my head. But I will always remember that he told me that I have a kindness bump, and I refer to it often. Number 4, I immediately became a fangirl of his Irish band, Bards of a Feather, later called Planet Reel, R-E-E-L, and I'm still a fan and have a t-shirt. But it was Barry, his mom, and the other governor's school teachers that challenged my ideas about the world. And that made that month in 1999 the best month of my 17-year-old life. In fact, I loved the school so much that wherever I went, New Orleans, Africa, Buffalo, New York, I always came back in June for that school, and I was a resident counselor for 5 years. Last year, I finished my 10th year as a teacher, and next year, Clay Francis and I will be the associate directors of the program. Another Gov School for lifer. But it was Governor's School seeing Barry's and the other teachers' passion for teaching and their effortless way of inspiring students that I learned what being a good teacher looked like. I know that I will strive every single day and every year of my teaching career to meet the high bar that Barry set. He was an amazing teacher, but he was also a great mentor and a fearless friend.
My name is Clay Francis, and I started at the Governor's School in 2006. Barry is the reason that I'm now at Hutchinson. He's also the reason I left for a few years to pursue more education, and then the reason that I came back a couple of years ago. Part of the Governor's School experience involves connecting each activity to the themes of the program. I've stood next to Barry dozens of times as we guided students through conversations about those themes, and I can't think of a better way to express my respect and admiration for Barry than to describe how he embodied and taught the ideas of multiple perspectives, interdependence, community, and equity, something we remember with the acronym MICE. And for all the students in the room, there is a quiz at the end of the service, and you will have to know those. So if you were going to design one and only one activity to teach about multiple perspectives, interdependence, community, and equity, then you probably realize that you'd need about 500 yards of duct tape, 10,000 square feet of black and clear polyethylene plastic, 8 box fans, some scissors, a box of markers, an assortment of frozen memorabilia, and one lonely plastic bag. You'd probably then also know that you'd have to group the students together with an unequal distribution of those resources and expect that they could barter and trade in competition and community to build a giant global village made of plastic where over 100 people could have a dance party, a badminton match, or a Zen meditation space. Except you probably didn't think of Global Village because only Barry could conjure up something so magical. He even knew that changing the music throughout the day could push students to be more creative. He played pop hits from around the world in the early hours, whatever Katie and Zoe happened to be listening to that year in the middle time, and Disney sing-alongs happened at the end. I really don't like Let It Go. What I admire most about Barry's leadership in this activity was his insistence that failure was an option. And with that many high school students running around, so was a trip to the hospital. Despite the fact that he had successfully completed Global Village many times, his willingness to hold the space between the possible and the impossible gave students a sense that they were truly pioneers. Barry and I discussed several times that holding that space for doubt was not lying to the students because never before had that group of students with that set of relationships and that particularly hot and humid day come together to construct their version of a global village. The tradition of Global Village and mice will live on at Governor's School for many years to come, and Barry's legacy will live there too. Not only in the duct tape that holds the activity together, but more importantly, in the relationships that hold our community together.
Hi, I'm Rachel Matson. I'm also a teacher here at Hutchinson. I owe my newfound love for education, newfound last 3 years when we were hired together, to Barry, and I know now that I have a career ahead of me, and I owe that to him. But I first met Barry in 2008 in my first summer working at Governor's School with these two clowns. And while I've since had over a decade's worth of memories with him, what always comes to mind first when I think of my first time meeting Barry is this next song, There Were Roses, as he sang this powerful song every year at Governor's School. An Irish ballad written in the 80s by Tommy Sands, There Were Roses, is a song about a real friendship during the time in Ireland known as the Troubles. The course of this song takes you from a close bond between Isaac, a Protestant, and Sean, a Catholic. One morning, the town finds out that Isaac had been killed just out of town, and a Protestant paramilitary group sets out to kill a Catholic to even up the score. They take Sean from his home as he cries that Isaac was his friend. This song, somber and heavy, pushes the listener to think not only about the pointlessness of centuries of hatred and violence in Ireland, but to question their own prejudices and anger. The lyrics ask us to think about human tears shed over senseless violence, challenging us to end the suffering. It should be no surprise to anyone who knew Barry that this song is one of his constants in his sets. His legacy is one of consideration, thoughtful action, and sincere empathy. In that vein, and in his honor, we would like you all to participate in this song the way that Barry asked several audiences, or every audience he played this song for. During the refrain, we'd like you all to sing with us. The lyrics are simple, and they are in your program, and they should be on the screen. It goes, there were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together.
My song for you this evening, it's not to make you sad, nor for adding to the sorrows of our troubled northern land. But lately I've been thinking, and it just won't leave my mind. I'll tell you of two friends one time who were once good friends of mine. Now Isaac Scott from Bena, he lived just across the fields, a great man for the music and the dancing and the reels. MacDonough came from South Armagh to court young Agnes fair, and we'd often meet on the Ryan Road, and laughter filled the air. And there were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. Now Isaac, he was Protestant and Sean was Catholic born, but it never made a difference, for their friendship it was strong. And sometimes in the evening when we heard the sound of drums, the fighting won't divide us, for we always will be one. For the ground our fathers ploughed in, the soil it is the same, and the places where we say our prayers have just got different names. We talked about the friends who died, we hoped there'd be no more. 'Twas little then did we realize the tragedy in store. And there were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. It was on a Sunday morning when the awful news came round. Another killing had been done outside of Camden town. We knew that Isaac danced up there, we knew he liked the band. But when we heard that he was dead, we just could not understand. We gathered at the gravesite on a cold and rainy day. The minister, he closed his eyes, and for no revenge he prayed. And all of us who knew him from around at the Ryan Road, we bowed our heads and said a prayer for the resting of his soul. And there were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. Now fear filled the countryside, there was fear in every home. And late at night a car came prowling round the Ryan Road. A Catholic would be killed tonight to even up the score. Oh Christ, it's young MacDonough they have taken from the door. But Isaac was my friend, he cried, he begged them with his tears. But centuries of hatred have ears that cannot hear. An eye for an eye, it was all that filled their mind. And another eye for another eye, till everyone is blind. And there were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. My song for you this evening, it's not to make you sad, no for adding to the sorrows of our troubled northern land. But lately I've been thinking, and it just won't leave my mind. I'll tell you of two friends one time who were once good friends of mine. Well, I don't know where the moral is, nor where the song should end, but I wonder just how many wars are fought between good friends. And those gave the orders, they are not the ones to die. It's Scott and MacDonald and the likes of you and I. And there were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. And there were roses, roses, there were roses.
Hey everyone, I'm Cheney. I'm Barry's sister. Barry wrote a letter to my mom and our family that I'd like to read. I think it says as much about him as it says about us. Dear Mom, I can't imagine any scenario in which a parent should lose a child first, especially one like sickness. It's not the way we feel things should be. I'm so sorry for what you've had to accept and endure, and what a raw deal this is. In this case, though, I'm glad I got to learn some things that maybe we knew. For one thing, this is a family of love that doesn't just talk the talk. We actually don't talk that much at all, which surprises people. But when it comes down to it, we love and share and are there for one another like no other family. I'll take that any day over the superficial. Second, we don't make it tougher on each other. So many families do. In particular, you've made it easier on me and Tracy at every step. And Tracy has been able to be extraordinary in helping me while Phoebe thrives and the big girls get by. I am deeply grateful to how you've welcomed them. Most of all, I'm so grateful that each of you brings your individual expertise, joy, and strength to us. What Sam and Morgan bring is not Brad's legal expertise, but is no less important. I treasure each of you and will miss you deeply. Brad, not just for the legal, but for many episodes of vacationing, biking, and fun. As adults, your role as my big brother is constantly fulfilled in ways that are meaningful but light-handed. I'm deeply grateful for you. Cheney, for sharing my spirit of exploration all over the world in such an easy manner. I've loved connecting with you more and more over our lifetimes and treasure the perspective and quiet dignity you bring to our conversations. Thank you for being my teacher in a million incidental ways. Chip, for ongoing fun and being a person I admire, never settling or feeling enough is enough. It's inspirational. We have some good memories together. Debbie, for your calmness and wisdom and competence. My girls could have far worse role models. You're such a soothing influence on us, and we love you for it. Bill and Sharon, David and Daniel, Ann, Jerry, Tom, Keith, Corinth and Mary, Elizabeth. What a wonderful gift that I have only been able to grow and appreciate you more, to like and respect you more as you two have aged. I hope all our families learn to be humble and kind in a similar way. Thank you for all that you've given me. I love each of you. To my nieces and nephews, Tyler, Claire, Sam, Maddie, Amy, and also Morgan and Taylor, each of you is unique and special to me. Watching you grow up and become your special selves has been a joy. There's not one of you without magnificent potential and the ability to bring humor, joy, and pride to my world. I wish I could spend more time with you. You're all fantastic people. And back to my mother. Everyone knows that there are few such women on earth as you. Where does one begin? With intellect, with heart, with drive, with care for others, with all you do and give? I wish I could see the rest. You have been my guide, my northern star in many ways. Thanks seems inadequate. Just please know that the love is mutual. What a family. I am beyond lucky to have had half a century with this family. I will take it over any alternative with dysfunctional relationships. To all, my thanks, my love, my joy at your presence. Last, I've been thinking a lot about my grandmother and her life. I love the poem Ulysses, which meant so much to her. I recall that it was printed on her high school graduation program and quoted at her funeral. To strive, to seek, and not to yield. There are worse goals, and I feel I have been a striver, a seeker, and have fought against yielding, even in dark times. I owe her a debt of modeling a life of purpose for me. Just maybe we will reunite in some ways. Who knows what's next? A horizon whose margins fade forever and ever when I move. All, I love you. Mom, please carry that love for the rest of your days. With all my heart, Bear.
My dad, my sister, and I started writing our musical when I was 14. After years of listening to every musical possible during car trips to Nashville, from Jesus Christ Superstar to Les Mis, my dad finally suggested one night, while parked in a Fresh Market parking lot, that we put our skills to the test and write our own play. From there, the idea for